To make sure their grievances were heard, they staged a sit-in at the temple. But the state's response only added insult to injury. Local officials could only hand round a delivery of pastries, not much use to anyone. The indifference of the authorities provoked many more weeks of protest. Their grievances only increased, and soon the striking workers had taken to shouting out at passing authority figures, including the mayor. The workers were finally fobbed off with enough supplies to shut them up in time for the Pharaoh's Jubilee celebration to pass by, unhindered by trouble. But the striking workers had highlighted the waning power of the monarchy. With the Pharaoh now served by an increasingly inefficient and corrupt bureaucracy, the glorious bubble of royal extravagance finally burst. And the Pharaoh's rivals were waiting in the wings. The priests of Karnak. Having grown powerful through the revenues given to the gods they served, the writing for the royals was quite literally on the wall. And you can see what I mean in this little-known part of Karnak Temple. Where the high priest is making a very bold statement, but only if you know how to read the footnotes. Now this is a fascinating scene. We have the Pharaoh, Ramses IX, and he's facing his high priest shown here. But there's something extraordinary about this scene, because for the first time, the Pharaoh and the priest are shown on exactly the same scale. They are the same height. That's why the priest is looking so pleased. He has his arms raised as if in triumph, because these guys are so clever. They've actually got the Pharaoh standing on a box. So he's a fraction higher, and yet in reality, they're the same height. This really shows that the priests are in power. They're basically saying to the king, we are the same size as you, therefore we are as important as you are. Priests have become full-time politicians. Vying with the throne for power, they destabilized the balance between church and state, the relationship on which Egypt's entire culture depended. So great were their ambitions that by the end of the New Kingdom, the priests took control of the entire south. And with the Pharaoh ruling only the north, the country was split into its two ancient halves. But even worse was to come. It's at Medinet Habu, Ramses III's funerary temple, that we can find out just how little interest these politician priests now had in the royal afterlife. They were only concerned with their own status and their own wealth.
But she had been the force behind her husband's tenure, and continued to do so as she saw fit after his death. Hatshepsut is in charge of numerous construction initiatives. She conducted the most successful expedition to Punt, added her works to the temple at Karnak, and governed in harmony with Nubia to the south. Her construction undertakings were so beautiful and numerous that subsequent pharaohs claimed ownership of them. They were able to do so because Hatshepsut's name was taken from all of her structures, including her magnificent complex at Deir el-Bahri around 1458 BCE. Concerning the obelisks that were erected in the different temples, they were symbols of the sun god, and many of them can be found everywhere in the whole world, whether they were real Egyptian ones or modern ones imitating the ancient Egyptian obelisks. The process of carving one is not a paradox, as there is an unfinished one located in the quarries of granite in Aswan. Hatshepsut commissioned its construction, probably to accompany what became known as the Lateran obelisk, which was originally at Karnak, but was later brought to the Lateran Palace in Rome. Thutmose III inherited a wealthy and secure country in 1458 BCE and wasted no time in improving it. Thutmose III establishes the Egyptian Empire, which his descendants would sustain. He defeated the neighboring countries and expanded Egypt's dominion further than it had ever been before, using the war chariot acquired from the Hyksos, bronze weaponry, and better strategies. Over 20 years, he led at least 17 separate military campaigns, subduing kingdoms from Libya to Syria and extending Egypt's authority in the south, from the region around Buin down to Kyrgyz. When Hatshepsut died, Thutmose III ascended to power. Believing him to be weak and inexperienced, the king of the Syrian city of Kadesh instigated a revolt in the Egyptian province of Canaan, which swiftly gathered support from other places aiming to dethrone Egypt. This coalition met in the city of Megiddo. Thutmose III marched his army from Thebes to Megiddo in northern Canaan, prudently choosing a narrow pass from the town of Aruna instead of the wider and easier routes to the city, and surprised his enemies by entering the Kina Valley behind their defensive positions and driving them from the field. Thutmose III had to lay siege to the city to seize it. Janeni, who was Thutmose III's commander and military scribe, naturally accompanied his monarch in war to put down the rebellion, and wrote a record describing the fight. Thutmose III was so taken by Jani's tale that he had sections of it written on the walls of the great temple of Amun at Karnak, and, to a lesser extent, elsewhere. Janeni begins by describing why the writing on the temple's walls exist. He then goes on to explain the campaign and its motivations. The wretched adversary referenced on several occasions is the king of Kadesh, who started the revolt and gathered the armies against Egypt. But it is also used to refer to everyone who joined the rebellion at times. Following the Battle of Megiddo, Thutmose III would subdue and punish those who took part, capturing not just Kadesh, but also all of Syria and the Mitanni territories in Mesopotamia. He was succeeded by his son Amenhotep II, 1425 to 1400 BCE, who inherited and built on his father's powerful and safe kingdom. He was not a warrior king, but he did order many construction projects and signed peace treaties and commerce deals with other countries, such as Mitanni. Thutmose IV, 1400 to 1390 BCE, his replacement, carried on his programs. Based on readings of his renowned dream Stelle, which recounts the tale of how he came to the kingdom, Thutmose IV is regarded as a usurper, although he is the legal son of Amenhotep II. He's best known as the king who rebuilt Giza's Great Pyramid.
In the Egyptian people, it awakened a sense of community that lasted for millennia.
They have built something that is so fantastic and monumental that would live forever. And this was also a great achievement and a way for making people united and purposeful.
For more than 500 years, the pyramid builders of the Old Kingdom rule successfully until their power slowly wanes. Chaos, famine, and civil war ensue. Even the pyramids of Giza are looted. The rulers of the Middle Kingdom can stop the decline and have new, alas not so magnificent, pyramids built. Yet again, the central government collapses. Egypt is divided in two, dominated in the north by the hostile Hyksos. Until Ahmose I unites the country again, he is the last king to erect a pyramid. Then a dynasty originating from magnificent Thebes comes to power. It's the beginning of the new kingdom and a new era of funerary architecture. For better protection against grave robbers, the pharaohs are no longer buried in pyramids, but in magnificent underground rock tombs. For their royal necropolis, they choose a valley near Thebes. Its special feature, a pyramid-shaped mountain that towers above it. The legendary Valley of the Kings.
The pharaohs of the New Kingdom came from a family that had long since settled in Thebes, so that's where their ancestors were buried, and that's where they themselves wanted to be buried.
More than 60 tombs and pits have been found so far. The names of the dead are a who's who of Egyptian history. Among them pharaohs like Seti I, Ramses II, Ramses IV, and Tutankhamun. The tombs are driven up to 140 meters deep into the mountains. And there are entire palaces. An endless labyrinth of pitfalls, false doors and fake passages is supposed to frustrate tomb robbers. No expense seems too great to protect the dead pharaoh and his treasures. Yet have the royal families the valley all to themselves? A team of archaeologists from the University of Basel, Switzerland, makes a telling discovery in tombs KV64 and KV40. Even the supposedly protected location in the valley did not prevent looting.
KV40 was intensively robbed both in ancient and in modern times, and both times it was also set afire. Looking closely at the numerous shards of clay vessels, we found inscriptions and were able to identify 32 names. 26 of them were women. All these people are from the closest environment of a pharaoh, Amenhotep III.
In 2012, Susanna Bickel's team makes another sensational discovery. Tomb KV64 is the first tomb since that of Tutankhamun that's still sealed. Inside, an intact sarcophagus. Beneath the rubble, the researchers discover another mummy. It belongs to an unknown princess from the New Kingdom. Tomb robbers have looted the chamber after it was first used and didn't care for her mummy. The looting of graves is not uncommon in ancient Egypt, but in the intermediate periods there is a particularly high incidence of looting. Around the year 1000 BC, it's probably the once wealthy priests of all people who helped themselves to the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, robbing those they're supposed to protect. Only a few remains of the once magnificent grave goods are preserved. So far, there are no clues as to the identity of the unknown princess. But who does the sarcophagus belong to? It dates from the 3rd Intermediate period, so it's younger than the princess. A stele is found next to the coffin. It's exceptionally well preserved, and probably shows the young woman who was buried here. Her name is Nehemes Bastet. However, she's not a king's daughter. During the 3rd Intermediate period, Egypt breaks up into two realms. The pharaoh rules the north from Tanis. The powerful Amun priests of Thebes rule the south of the land. Nehemes Bastet is the daughter of a high priest of Amun. She bears the title Singer of Amun and is thus part of the new elite. Her family buries her in the tomb of a princess, and this makes her immortal. For her sarcophagus preserves her name and title for posterity. Menahem es Bastet, singer of Amun. A surprise for archaeologists too.